The AFI Digital Content Lab has always been a big fan of public media. We've worked every year. We've had a number of projects that we incorporate. This year, we're here to show you that radio can be very pretty. Our next presenter is Jenny Asarnow. Asarnow. And she is a radio personality, but she works with a group, MQ2. She's going to be showing some of what they're thinking about and then give us a little more depth on the project that she herself was involved in. It's a really wonderful, very human project, and I think you'll be really kind of charmed by it.
From the Association of Independents in Radio, Incorporated, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, taking public media to the street. MQ2, 8 producers, 5 months, $40,000 each. Public Radio Makers Quest 2.0 is a pilot project that turned to inspired individual producers to lead public broadcasting through the transition to diversified public media. Their assignment? To invent new ways to produce across platforms, to tap the power of public radio's tens of millions of traditional listeners and diverse new publics, to entice them, entertain them, inform them, and invite them to participate. On April 1st, 2009, we began with 8 public radio reporters and producers. They emerged 5 months later as the face of a new generation of public media maker. From Los Angeles to New York City, New Orleans to Chattanooga, MQ2 producers work with their station, network incubators, and teams of collaborators they assembled to explore new ways to tell stories from the heart of America. Mapping Main Street is an ongoing participatory documentary taking us beyond the political rhetoric of Main Street, turning to everyday citizens to help tell the story of the 10,466 Main Streets across America.
I'm here on Main Street in the City Metro Diner.
We're in Lexington, Virginia.
Lewiston, Montana.
Navasota.
Gila Bend, Arizona, on Main Street.
When you think about living on Main Street, you think of all the
little shops,
4th of July parades,
an ice cream vendor on the corner.
You picture in your mind a place.
Our particular Main Street connects United States and Mexico.
Inverse shifts the documentary format into yet another new form by blending poetry, photography, and mobile media to pull back the curtain on working-class America's dreams deferred.
You are the baby mother and the baby father. You are the girls who unzip their jeans to let out their bellies. You are the worry over the child support you didn't get, the child support you didn't pay. You are the unborn baby's welfare card awaiting its first birthday.
The Place and Memory Project taps the power of shared memory to spark social networking and open a new public media digital storytelling platform.
This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Scott Simon. This summer, Weekend Edition is launching Place and Memory. It's a project about places that we cherished and no longer exist. And we'd like you to participate by sending us some of your favorite long-gone locales. That's producer Shay Shackelford. Shay, I've got my own place to tell you about.
Really?
Camp Indianola, Madison, Wisconsin. Hundreds of boys, scores of cabins and counselors, spending 8 weeks of summer along the shores of Dulcet Lake Mendota, swimming, splashing. Cue the crickets here. Making lanyards, playing baseball, singing camp songs, and telling some of the crudest, most appalling jokes you've ever heard. Bring those crickets up full.
Open Sounds New Orleans gathers contributed stories and sounds, transmits them to millions of listeners over the radio, and digitally maps this vibrant culture that even Hurricane Katrina could not erase.
This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Leanne Hansen. Many of the sounds of New Orleans are well known. The jazz of Louis Armstrong and the hip-hop of Lil Wayne. Then there are the lesser-known sounds. That was the sound of a tap dancer in the French Quarter. It came from the website opensoundneworleans.com. The site is part of a project that aims to archive the sounds of the city. That's a brass band playing at Super Sunday.
Well, Leanne, what you're looking at is what we call a sound map of the city of New Orleans, and those icons represent voices, ambient sounds, and music, and they're what we call sound marks, which are sort of landmarks of sound.
Between April 1st and August 31st, 2009, MQ2 journalists harnessed powerful traditional public radio outlets, reaching all corners of the U.S. on 635 public radio stations and taking it beyond. They lay down new media pipelines, sending thousands of stories, sounds, photos, and moving images into viral circulation. They tapped new and diverse social media networks, inviting members to participate as documentarians of their own communities. Revolutionary, participatory journalism. MQ2, a replicable blueprint to move public media institutions to a more diverse and engaged public.
I'm going to talk about the project I created for MQ2 with a group of multimedia artists. It's called The Corner, 23rd and Union. It's a community storytelling project. This summer, we put up a public art installation and opened up a hotline that was a place where people could call and tell their stories about this street corner and listen to other people's stories. So in that way, we were hoping people would collaborate in making a radio documentary with us. 23rd and Union, it's an ordinary street corner in Seattle. It's a commercial center, and for decades, it's since about World War II been the center for Seattle's African-American community. And in recent decades, that's changed. As new people have moved in and housing prices have gone way up, there's kind of a culture clash going on between people who've lived in the neighborhood for a long time and newcomers, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out what's going on here and what their place is in this community. I've lived in the neighborhood for about 4 years, and 23rd and Union is where I wait for the bus. And so I came to this project just out of a sense of curiosity, wanting to know what was going on here. 23rd and Union itself has a lot of vacant space, empty lots and empty storefronts, which to me seems strange since it's a very centrally located area, and Seattle is, a city that's doing well economically. So it also just seemed like a place that I was supposed to be afraid of. It's often talked about as a hotspot for drug dealing, and there have been a few shootings there over the years, and I was told not to walk there at night, that kind of a thing. And so I wanted to participate in creating something that everyone would be interested in using as a tool to communicate. I worked with a wonderful group of artists. Inye Wokoma took the photographs of neighbors. We've seen a couple already, and we're going to see a bunch more. And he also lives in the neighborhood. His family's lived there and owned property for about 4 generations. And Anna Callahan is the web artist. That's not actually her picture, but this is an image of our website. We opened up a hotline. We wanted people to tell stories, and so in order to get them to do that, we felt like we had to provide a model for the kind of stories we were interested in hearing, just the kind of ways we were hoping people would talk. So Inye and I located members of the community we thought would inspire other people to talk, and I'm just going to play you a short sample of what you would have heard if you called into the voicemail line, and then one of the stories you might have heard if you called in.
Welcome to The Corner.
Corner 23rd.
23rd and Union. It's a public radio documentary you helped to create. It's about change in Seattle's Central District. Are you at 23rd and East Union right now? For yes, press 1. This is your chance to listen and tell stories about the neighborhood. To hear a story, press any number, 1 through 6.
To tell your own story right now, press 7.
There was a club up on 23rd and Union. This was in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was called the Checkmate. And I have a lot of really good memories of that. It wasn't a dive, it wasn't run down. It had a lot of class, and it really became a hangout for members of the Black Panther Party. My name is Aaron Dixon. Just having something in your neighborhood was really important that you could go to, instead of going outside of your neighborhood. There was a lot of neighborhood bands at that time. A lot of great musicians were coming out of Seattle. And it was just really very funky R&B music with a lot of organ, a lot of bass. There was a band called the Majestics, which was about maybe a 20-piece band, the Blackmen, with Dennis Blackman, Black and White Affair. You could say it was a place of therapy, a retreat, a place where you could just kind of relax and unwind from all the other things that were happening outside of the club. There was one incident where we had been out on an armed patrol, patrolling the police. There was a confrontation with the police, and we ended up going into the checkmate with our rifles and shotguns. It kind of caught everybody off guard. But it was just one of those incidents during that time when, you never knew what might happen. Wish we had the checkmate back again. But this is different times now.
One of the things I really noticed when I started working on this project and started learning more about the neighborhood, I mentioned there's a lot of empty space there, and I was really shocked by how thoroughly the history of this corner had been erased from the landscape itself. So there used to be, just in that one lot, we were looking at a big grocery store, drugstore, doctors and lawyers' offices, and restaurants. And most of that is just gone now. So a lot of people responded to the kind of thing Aaron was talking about, bringing up their memories of the times that were kind of like their golden ages in around that space. So just a couple of technical notes. The way this worked, we used a Skype phone line, and I worked with a software engineer, Joseph Sheedy, who kind of hacked together an automatic system with some call center software. So the way it worked is when you called up, your message, if you chose to leave a message, became an MP3 on our server and showed up automatically on the website as one of these little yellow buttons. And it also became one of the messages in the pool of outgoing messages that you would hear when you called. So if you chose to listen to a story, you would hear one at random, and it might be one of the ones that I created, like we just heard, or it might be a message that someone just left. And we included all of the messages unedited, so they just popped up there. I just went in occasionally and listened to make sure there wasn't like a hang up or something. Then we had to let everyone know that this phone number existed, and one of the ways we did that was we built an art installation. We got permission from the owner of this empty lot, who doesn't have funding to build his building that's in development, to put up this art installation. It shows Inye Wakoma's photographs of neighbors standing on the corner, and Nico and Joe built it. It advertised the phone number. We had a Facebook page that was really active, and we had a barbecue. One Sunday afternoon, Ms. Helen this woman we're looking at here, she used to run a restaurant in that same empty space for decades, and she cooked. So it was really great. And then we also were all this time airing stories on KUOW, which has one of the biggest audiences in Seattle, and asking people to call into the phone number when the stories were done, and also on Hollow Earth Radio. At the end of all this, when we started out, I didn't know if we'd get any stories at all, but we got more than 200 stories left on the phone line, and we got about 900 phone calls altogether. A lot of people just called up to listen. And so at the end of all this, I put together 3 9 to 12 minute documentary radio features that aired on KUOW. And I'm just going to play you a short excerpt from the third one, which is focusing on gentrification. And this is a section where people are talking about crime.
They litter a lot, and they sell drugs in our backyard, and
they've just periodically they come along and tag in the middle of the night. kind of marking their territory, even though they don't own it. They think they do.
I know, and one time I saw someone laying on the ground who I think got stabbed on the street 50 feet from my front door. I don't know. I feel like a witness to these things, but I don't feel threatened in any way, like that could happen to me.
Because the conflict don't involve them. Because right now there's basically two communities coexisting. One is violent and real survival oriented, and the other is, oh, I have a job, I work for Microsoft, and they're walking their dog and, doing this and that. And they're existing, it's amazing. That's just on the sidewalk. They just walk right past each other.
I'm Brooke, and when I think of 23rd and Union, sadly, I think about how many people there are around here that are wasting their lives, that seem to be just hanging out on the corners and dealing drugs and doing things that don't make any difference in this world in a positive way. And it's just sad how sometimes the stereotypes that I always fought against and that I've always said were never true, sometimes I feel like they are, and I still have to fight them internally. So God help this neighborhood, and hopefully we can all work together to make it a better place.